I want to welcome everyone to the Four Esoterics, minus Ben Boychik today. We wish his mother's car condolences. And I can't think of a more pertinent time to have just 1 hour of a respite of a break from the news of the world. Every 23 other hours, you should be tuned into and reading AM Greatness. But for 1 hour, just have a respite from, and I'm just thinking about pause when agitated. But today's show with Lewis Blackwell Fine and the publisher of AM Greatness, Chris Buskirk, we are going to be talking about, I thought of this idea the other day of remember when that was popular? And there's so many things that were popular at the time that we probably thought would never end. Think about lead pencils. The number 2 pencils. If there were no Scantron,
they were never lead.
Sorry?
They were graphite.
Graphite.
They still are.
What are?
Thanks for starting strong.
Well, I'm waiting for the number 2 pencil.
It's a good essay. I pencil. Famous essay. I'm being completely serious. Everybody, Buskirk knows about I pencil.
I do know about iPencil. There's a good video on YouTube about iPencil.
What, it doesn't exist anymore? Yeah, it helps, Lewis. It helps with the flow of the show as you're eating an apple and sucking on it. There's no better visual for people to be watching.
iPencil is an essay.
Than you masticating with an apple.
Yeah, right. Good use of SAT words. Is a essay about all the things that come together to create a pencil, which is used as a metaphor about the market and sorting of goods and services, because in theory, a pencil would seem to be impossible to create.
That's interesting.
Remember what people used to know about that essay?
Mm-hmm.
See, that's something. People used to know these things.
Yeah, I had no idea about that. But I mean, you have kids in school. You both have kids in school. Do they actually use number 2 pencils anymore?
I have no idea.
Lewis?
They use pencils. I don't know if they're number 2.
No, but remember the first day of school, we'd
two,
have that
2.5, 3, whatever.
Yeah, remember we used to have those little bags that we'd have, put them in our loose leaves, with the eraser, the whiteout, the scissors, that little
your pencil case.
Yeah,
my Trapper Keeper had actual, and I also had the Unicorn Trapper Keeper in the 80s because my mom was cool and got me the Lisa Frank series. So, a fad that maybe has gone away since then and is now coming back.
Yeah, but the Trapper Keeper went from like it was super cool for about 15 minutes, and then all of a sudden it was only like, oh, you've got a Trapper Keeper, like you're one of those. I got the peachy folders and the denim and the denim binder, because that shows that you're hard.
I had a 9th grade earth science teacher, Bernard Arjeski, Mr. Arjeski. If he's alive, again, I have no tangible assets.
Lewis, you have to speak up a little bit.
I had a 9th grade earth science teacher, Bernard Arjeski, Mr. Arjeski. I have no tangible assets. I'm judgment proof. I offer that as a point of qualification to go on with the story, because he thought he was a genius in telling the class that every September, I bet Mead, MEAD, the company, the paper goods company, I bet they get an uptick in their stock price because of the back to school sales. He said that as if he had devised a unified field theory for physics and gravity. Best thing about school supplies first day of school, you could get so high on the smell of that plastic pencil pouch, or if you had the separate case, the pencil pouch, which was translucent, you'd put into the 3-ring binder. Mine had a denim cover, and you zip that, and by the end of first week of school, it was just black. That plastic had either yellowed or gone black entirely. And between the smell of the Scotch tape, the pens, the
That's
paper,
right. That's exactly what was in the pencil case.
I had Mr. Sketch, so I got high off of cherry red markers.
Oh yeah, we had classmates that would they try to eat them. Their teeth would be orange or red. They try to just gnaw on that little stump of scented marker, naturally scented, of course, with essential oil.
And there was always the kid that actually did sniff the white out. You
You
know,
could tell because he had the white debris right here on his septum.
Does anybody remember the as viscous as seminal fluid rubber cement?
rubber cement.
But the viscosity of that thing was like they had just a row of men in a warehouse releasing into glass bottles, which were then sealed with a brush inside, and you take it out. And that thing
Doing jobs Americans don't want to do.
Yeah,
Right.
it was creating future tiny little painters.
But
Again, I want to.
into these. I had classmates that would make balls, and they harden into these giant boogers that they would slingshot across the classroom.
Love the visual. You had actually a long list of things that were popular at one point that ceased to exist.
Right. Well, you had phrased it as whatever happened to.
Yeah.
Example: rioting and looting. Whatever happened to that? I remember when.
Right, it's time to bring it back.
Yeah, if the police were accused of wrongdoing, egregious wrongdoing, you could just break into an electronics store, walk out with a television and a receiver or speakers, and you don't see that anymore.
Yeah, that's what you brought up to me the other day, and that and Tybo.
Tybo, Susan Powder. Who remembers Susan Powder? Stop the Insanity. Billy Blanks. Psychic Friends Network. Did they?
Oh, that's a good one. The Psychic Frick. That's a great one.
Did they see the end coming? That's what I want to know. 900 numbers.
Don Lepre. That was me. I actually worked for Don Lepre.
And the Chinese crook on the yacht.
Yes.
The real estate. He was the real estate tycoon. What was his name? Tony Wu?
Well, there was the Vietnamese guy, Tom Vu.
Yeah. You'd be on a yacht. And because I've been watching the Jeffrey Epstein documentary on Netflix, he was surrounded with his version, a proto version of Epstein-like women. And he would just say,
yeah, there was a huge difference because those women were all like in their late teens and 20s. They weren't they weren't prepubescent.
Right, but still, well, Epstein had a mix apparently, and so they weren't party lines.
Oh my God! But that's party lines go back.
That's like how old are you, Louis? That's like from the 30s?
Oh no! He's referring to the 900 party lines. Not
right. I thought it was like, can you connect me with Klondike 368?
Yeah.
No.
Not when they took all the copper and all the material, whatever that was made for, and everybody had to share a line.
And the fact that was a huge success, and they could charge you $5 a minute to talk to strangers.
Okay, can I ask an honest question? Who here
I never did it.
Get into trouble for at least being on one of those lines for 5 minutes?
Oh, so I actually have a very good 900 story. So when I was a freshman in college, in the dorms, you had to get Pactel to come out and hook up your phone. Otherwise, the phone was just like an on-campus phone. You could call other rooms, but if you wanted to be able to dial out, like call home or whatever, you had to get Pactel to come out and give you and hook you up so you can get and buy your long distance service. Remember when there was such a thing as long distance service?
Indeed.
Oh my God, that's another thing. The track cards. Those.
You got like an MCI card or whatever, so you could call home. We had a divide and conquer strategy with me and my roommate, who I didn't know freshman year. I said, I'll just do it. I'll put it in my name, no problem. He was going to go and do some other stuff. And then the first bill comes. And the bill, now bear in mind, this is not recently. the bill was over almost $700. And I thought, oh my God, like my life is over. Like, what if I think I called home like 3 times? I had no idea how much long distance cost. No wonder my dad was always complaining about it. And then I start to look through the statement where it shows all the calls and how much each one of them cost. And of the sort of $700, about 690 of it was to 900
Well,
numbers.
You're
What
sort
people
of,
don't know, maybe who don't know these, is that some of these 900 numbers, they would talk dirty to you.
yes, I accidentally called them a few times.
Accidentally.
Yes, that was my excuse. I told my parents. And
I just happened to call 900, blah, 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 blah. I don't know how that happened. I was trying to order pizza. For
I
you,
said-
Mom.
Well,
I
when
said I thought it was 800. I said I thought it was
when
an
I
800.
accidentally called for the 10th time and was entering my number, my credit card number, he said that the credit card number I had entered is no longer accepted, and I am banned from using said number because, and I pieced this together a few minutes after, my mother must have opened my statement and then called the credit card company to protest the charges and have them removed. But in turn, the 900 number, my source of engaging conversation, decided they would ban me from
Is this
their,
a true story?
Absolutely.
I thank you, Lewis. That's like the most honest thing you've ever said on the show, and I appreciate and love that honesty. I just got to know you.
That I put a ton of charges on my MBNA visa for phone sex? Absolutely.
Chris raises though a great point.
I want to finish my freshman roommate story though.
Go on.
So I'm like, I'm 18 years old. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do here. It's a super awkward situation. It's a ton of money for an 18-year-old. I'm like, I can't obviously pay this. I'm not going to pay this. I started looking at it. Not only the times, that says it gives you the timestamp. So I had a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class at 8:20. So all of the timestamps were Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 8:20, 8:22, 8:25, 8:26, and then they stopped right before I would come back to the dorm room. And so finally, I just left. I played it coy. I just left it on his pillow with a note that says, "I don't know about these calls. Are they yours?" And I never saw a long distance bill again. He just said, "Yeah, I got it. I took care of it. I'll pay this from now on."
But you're not realizing how great of a point you're raising is that this is but 20 years ago, right? When people were so concerned with long distance. I mean, who would have thought 20 years ago when we were younger, right? And we're not that old, but 25 years, we've gone from voicemail, phone, if you couldn't reach somebody, to instant access, no long distance, and you could speak to anyone around the world for free.
Remember when people got a beeper and that was the height of technology? Staying in contact?
Yeah.
Yeah, doctors and drug dealers.
Right.
Really one and the same.
Doctors actually still use them.
Who does?
Doctors.
How about this? Answering services, not answering machines.
Oh my God.
Right, answering services.
Yeah. But it's funny though, because as we're going through this epidemic we're in Los Angeles. I don't know how it is in Arizona, Chris.
What epidemic?
They banned in most supermarkets plastic bags, and because of the coronavirus, they don't want people bringing in their own bags. So they've brought back plastic, but it's the cheapest form of plastic. Lewis, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Nobody destroyed the environment more than my mother through the supermarket, because she could buy just a pat of butter and demand, and of course the grocery clerks would acquiesce to her demands, that they paper bag, double bag it. She could buy a single item, a can of soup, double bag it. There are more trees that have been felled by my mother than Weyerhaeuser or any of the conglomerates and multinational corporations that are destroying the earth as we speak.
Okay, and why don't producer girlfriend give us a commercial breadstick ad, please?
Are you looking for a tasty, crunchy, salty treat during this COVID time? Do you live in Manhattan, New Jersey, Chicago, Traverse City, or parts of California? Why don't you go on down to those gourmet grocery stores and get yourself some Colleen's Better Than Breadsticks, the perfect carb crack for your pandemic needs.
And
I encourage, therefore, everyone.
Lewis, we're
go on
getting
YouTube.
feedback on your computer. I think it's your
It's not
computer.
mine. It's not
Oh.
mine. I encourage everyone to go on YouTube and search Patton Oswald Stelladora breadsticks. Oh, Stelladora.
No, go on Colleen's Breadsticks. What are you competing with producer
this is-
girlfriend's mother?
No, this is Patton Oswald's bit.
Oh,
Stelladora breakfast treats. That's it.
yeah. Patton Oswald's name should never be brought up in public.
What about as a slur?
As a slur, it's okay. Yes, you're like, instead of disgusting, you're Oswald. Okay, or you're Patton. You're a creep. You're an Oswald.
You say something like, "Wow, that your pants look a little snug there, Judah. You're going all Patton Oswald on us."
Hey, Chris, your stolen microphone is the source of that feedback.
No, the source of the feedback is the guy out in my courtyard who is the landscaper using the blower.
And it's not even your house.
Right. The one who's,
It's so noble of you to pay landscaping. Well,
Hey, why the blower? What do these people do with the blower? Do they not understand that they're just moving the leaves and the dirt from one place to the other?
but think about that. That's another product that in theory should not exist, because imagine the pitch to investors. It's a gasoline backpack
Thank you.
with that works as a vacuum cleaner.
Except it doesn't suck up the dirt; it just distributes it widely.
Right. So it's a gasoline backpack with a wind blower of a nozzle. And the great thing is, after 5 minutes, your gasoline-induced high then devolves into paranoia and dizziness, and 30 minutes later can cause either death or delusions and temporary loss of consciousness.
okay, so I have a quick question for both of you. 10 years ago, if somebody would have said to you, straws were going to be banned, there would be no more Blockbuster, music stores would all be shut down, bookstores would all be shut down, would you have any, in your 15 years ago, would you have thought these things were a possibility?
Yes, and I'll start with Blockbuster.
Blockbuster's 15 years ago, but go on.
But let me say, because Blockbuster's business model is premised on fleecing consumers through late fees.
Yeah.
And that there is one remaining Blockbuster is a testament to community empowerment and people saying no, because they were, as I said, fleecing customers, the most vulnerable among us.
Also, Netflix.
Well, no, Netflix is still around, but that.
No, he
I
means
mean-
that Netflix destroyed Blockbuster.
Right.
But
No late
Blockbuster,
fees, it was a subscription model. Remember, there wasn't always streaming.
Yeah.
Netflix started off just sending you DVDs in the mail, and there were no late fees.
Right.
I have never
But-
worked. Yeah, go ahead.
But the problem with that was, and I know you had a text exchange with a friend last night, Judah, about Paper Moon. The problem with that was when I would get certain DVDs, all of which I watched on my laptop, after the first 45 minutes of Paper Moon, it just died because so many of these DVDs were scratched.
Yeah. But I mean, but again, getting back to it, remember how quickly Blockbusters were built? It was almost like you were driving down the street and poof, there was a Blockbuster there. That's how quickly it left us.
And Hollywood Video.
And Hollywood, oh yeah, good call on the Hollywood Video. But I mean, just there's like a ton of things that I in my wildest dream I never thought. But then again, I thought rap was a fade. I thought
It
rap.
is.
I,
A fad, not a
a
fade.
fad. A fad. Well, they
Fade is what they
have
do.
yeah. But they have fades. Rappers
Yeah,
have fades.
They do
Right.
that for the there's a good rapper, you should listen to him, called Labyrinth. And he does some good
But-
stuff.
but I do remember saying to my friends in like 91 when I was still in high school going, yeah, this rap thing's not going to last. I just, eventually the 80s will come back. Hair bands will come back. Boy, did I miss the mark on that.
So
Maybe
this
you're just early.
subgenre of music that originates within the Black community, which is incredibly popular and commercially lucrative, will just dissipate because Blacks en masse will gravitate toward revival acts for bands like Poison and White Snake.
Yeah.
White Snake, chief among them.
Yes, I really, you know what? I didn't get rap, so I figured it was just a trend.
There's that one black man saying, "Give me some White Snake."
But getting back to it, remember the 80s. We were all products of the 80s. Remember when women would get the buzz cuts, those super buzz cuts in Greenwich Village, Lewis? You know, there was that one barbershop that was really, the hairstyle place that was really famous, or parachute pants. Remember when
I had a pair of black parachute pants that I wore to the Town Center Mall in Boca Raton, Florida.
and
Last week.
What color were they? Black.
Mine were black. They're black.
What I'm curious though, for the women that are listening and producer girlfriend, Lululemon at one point was just for yoga studios, right?
Yeah.
When did it become women's daily dress? Now, I'm not complaining about the women that have good figures that wear Lululemon. There is Astor Place, by the way. Thank you, Kristen Flower. That was the name of the haircutting place that would give crazy haircuts. And but getting back to it, when did Lululemon become acceptable women's clothing to wear in public?
That's a good question. I've never fallen into that trend because my everyday work situation doesn't allow for me to wear leggings. I have to wear actual like pants or jeans for safety issues. So, but you're right. It just kind of happened where I think a lot of people just thought that was an easier way to go. And I think Lululemon put it at a price point that made it fashionable. You know, it like that their apparel is not economical or cheap at all. And there have definitely been some companies that have sprouted up since then. But the thing that I think is very interesting right now, I was young during the 80s. And so I, as a kid, wore a lot of 80s fashion. And like I had slap bracelets and I had a skip it and I loved Fraggle Rock and Punky Brewster. And my 3-year-old niece, like I see the clothes that she's wearing that my sister-in-law gets from Target. And almost everything my niece is wearing is stuff that I wore during the 80s. Like I could pull out photos of like the different striped shirts. And recently, like my niece came up to me. She has a slap bracelet now. She likes Hello Kitty. And so it's interesting to me that all that stuff in the 80s that I thought was a fad when I was growing up is now having a resurgence. Like Lisa Frank is back in full force.
Who's that?
Oh, yeah.
Lisa Frank was like a stickers and trapper keeper designer. And it was all of those like majestic unicorns and stars. And it was like pink and teal, like all of that fun stuff is all making a comeback. And it's just funny that my niece, for her birthday, was asking me for certain things that I was like, wow, I wish I could go to my childhood home and just pull it out of my closet. You know what I mean?
So getting back to what you just brought back a memory that Lewis, I'm sure has, Chris, I'm sure you have, and producer girlfriend might have, Kristen Fowler might have, is the lunchbox. I mean, remember when
that goes all the way back. And the great thing about lunchboxes is that they were at least 6 pounds of solid metal with a thermos that any construction worker would have been proud to use. And you could weaponize them. And
we did.
Yeah. Now you have these cloth, pathetic excuses for lunchboxes.
What do you send your kid to school with?
a beating.
I don't doubt that. But does she have a lunchbox, or like what is she?
She does, because now she when school was in physical session, she had a lunchbox, but it's zippered. And prior to that, she was doing she was part of the school lunch program, not for poor students, the school's lunch, but she didn't like the food there. So
Judah, what was your lunchbox?
The Fall Guy.
Nice.
Yeah, I had.
Mine
the
was
Fall
Evil
Guy.
Knievel.
Sorry.
I had an Evil Knievel lunchbox.
The greatest thing about Evil Knievel, aside from
That's
his
a good
racism
one.
and anti-Semitism, was the fact that, and our friend's father who played him in the movie, was the fact that his stunts, and I'll put that in quotes, stunts, were not premised on success. It was like watching hockey. You watch hockey for the fights. You watched Evil Knievel for the crashes.
So by the way, so we found out just now that Lewis's lunchbox was the Hulk.
That's what Kristen says. I don't remember that.
Is that how you saw yourself as a scientist by day?
I had several lunchboxes. I do remember a Dukes of Hazzard lunchbox.
Oh, I think, yeah.
Oh, I'd take one of those right now.
Yeah.
But now with the scabs, remember the season when John Schneider and Tom Wopat were striking?
We're fired because of money.
Right. Yeah. So the producers decided, wait a second, we'll find another blonde, another brunette. We'll dress them the same way, and they'll just be the other cousins from Hazard County.
Okay, so I want to get to the few last things of. So I put down 8-track tapes, and I mean, you imagine like these people spent years concocting an 8-track tape. I've never seen an 8-track tape myself.
Oh, I was in cars that had them.
You've never seen one, Judah?
And I think I've seen one. They're like the big. They're like this big. Right?
They're cars.
So how do you listen to ELO?
I love ELO. I love.
I think they always release exclusively on 8-track. I think.
Yeah, but you get what I mean. Like the guy that created the 8-track probably said, "This is it. This is the future."
I'm set.
Hmm?
He's like, I'm set. I'm living off the IP royalties for my 8-track for the rest of my life.
And
no, I'm pretty sure the guy who made the laser disc said
oh my
that.
God.
I'm obsessed with the laser disc for several reasons. One, they were ahead of their time in many respects. They were wholly analog. They were not digital. But and Philips had their own laser disc, and RCA had their own laser disc as well, branded laser disc player. Now, so a few things about them. One, they were the size of dinner plates, and by dinner plates I mean from an Italian household on Sunday gravy night. They were enormous, and you had to flip them because the total viewing time on a platter was, I think, 30 minutes to a side. You'd get up, you'd flip it, and you'd watch it, but it was of superior quality.
This is a laser disc. What year? Just give me a reference, because I'd never had a laser disc. I remember hearing about that.
Picture a giant DVD.
What year is this, though? About ballpark?
Early 80s, like 82, 83. Yeah. And because you can find anything on YouTube, there are collectors who are devoted to the small library of laser discs for films that were available. And speaking of films and home viewing, do you remember when, in the age of video rentals, if you wanted to buy a copy of whatever movie was now available on VHS, it was $100.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, it was crazy.
You bring up something very interesting, and we're going to go to break in a second with Chris giving an ad for AM Greatness. But it's like I really do feel bad for the kids today. Remember when we would go into the video stores when we were younger? They all had the little door, not the real door, but it was like the vinyl cloth to the dark side.
Right. But that's the thing. Blockbuster didn't have that.
Yeah, no, Blockbuster didn't have the secret room that you would sneak into, praying nobody in your community or family saw you.
The smaller the community, the better, because that was when someone who was Wholly shameless. You're like, that's Mr. Jones.
Yeah.
And he'd just walk right, he'd stop, he'd shake hands, he'd kibitz, and then he'd walk into a room and he'd come out with like a handful of incredibly pornographic, triple X rated movies. And he was nonplussed. He'd walk up to the counter and maybe he'd get like a bag of peanut M&Ms.
I was always jealous of that guy that had no shame, that could walk right through those curtains. And me, I'm like, working my way to the curtains. And then inevitably somebody would always walk into the store. And I was like, it's not worth it.
You're back there in the corner, walk through the curtains. Is this the, is this where you keep the action adventure movies?
Right. Yeah. Is this the children's section?
I was always hoping for that one couple, the one couple who happened to be swingers in the neighborhood that would go behind the curtain. But I never saw a couple. I saw mostly men.
Yeah. I mean, remember when we used to have membership cards to get the videos? You actually had to have a membership card. And on that note, Chris, give us a little bit about AM Greatness and its wonderfulness.
I wanted to hear more about the breadsticks, but we'll go with AM Greatness this time too. Politics, culture, news, music reviews. We've got it all at American Greatness, amgreatness.com. Judah, you're a frequent contributor, which is what people, you come for Judah, you stay for everybody else.
I like that. And
that's the new tagline at amgreatness.com.
Let's say that one more time. I interrupted. What's the tagline? You come for Judah.
You come for Judah. You stay for everyone else.
I like that. I will accept that. What are some of the things? And iPhone, who's remaining anonymous, Kristen, you could join in. Chris, what are some of the things that you thought would never leave us? I mean, that it was impossible to see. That this was. I mean, remember, put it in perspective. When they came out with the Concorde, everybody thought this was it. This was the solution to high-speed travel. Concorde is.
Except the fact that it seated 20, a ticket was $10,000, and that because it broke the sound barrier, the people on the ground got to hear every few hours a massive explosion.
So actually that was one of my examples was Concorde, because Concorde, like the assumption was when supersonic travel came out is that we would advance beyond that, like that Concorde wouldn't be the endpoint. That was sort of the beginning to a new era.
That's what I mean.
Of jet travel. And so, like the sound barrier thing was a problem, which is why they couldn't fly coast to coast and why they were only doing like
New York,
London, and New York, Paris. Right. And then even when they were over, once they got over land, they had to come back down under the sound barrier. But the assumption was pretty soon they're going to figure out a way. It's going to be like super high altitude where the sound won't be an issue. And we'll be able to go from like New York to LA in like 45 minutes or something. And won't that be really cool? And in fact, they retired it. And today, here's a great factoid. The average cruising speed of a commercial jet aircraft today is slower than it was in 1965.
But speaking of remember when, it's very rare now. I don't know what the statistics are, so I'm speaking from my own perception. But
who cares about statistics? They're all made up.
Right. But remember when airline crashes were commonplace? They're very rare now.
Especially on value.
I'll take that one step further and say, do you remember when the space program had more crashes than successes? And in today's society, if you have a crash in the space industry, and I'm saying this because of what's going to happen or because of the launch tomorrow.
She's not predicting anything.
A failure means the end of a program, as opposed to during the 60s, when a failure was something that could be learned from.
Right. Now we're incredibly risk averse, so we're not willing to try new things.
Well, social media has Greg Gutfeld has raised the best point, when he always says we would have lost World War II if social media existed at that time. But Lewis raises a great point. The 80s was all about airplane crashes and hijackings.
Well, skyjackings, and that was more a phenomenon of the 70s. There were some in the 80s, but this was the beautiful thing about skyjackings, to the extent that there can be any beauty in taking a bunch of innocent passengers hostage and flying to Cuba.
I hear good things about Stockholm syndrome.
right, or Syria or Jordan, was that you could walk through, and I'll put this in quotes, airport security wearing a bandolier and holding an M16 and grenades on both sides of your chest that go from, say, your shoulders to your waist, and they just wave you through. They'd wave you through, and 10 minutes into the flight, you took control.
I remember when my grandparents in West Palm Beach picked me up on the tarmac.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I want you to think about this. People were waiting for people on the tarmac.
How about this? Actual metal silverware, because my mother's got a drawer full of Eastern Airlines forks, and they would give you a meal.
That's great.
Do you remember the hourglass?
I loved Eastern Airlines because they flew to Disney World, right? That was the one that from New York, I think. I think that was the ride at Disney World, was Eastern Wings of Man. But Chris, what else you got for us that you never thought would fade?
I like the hijackings one. That was pretty good. Remember DB Cooper disappeared? He got away with it.
Yeah.
Well, and the kid who found some of the money.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That was the basis of an episode of In Search of, hosted by Leonard Nimoy. And DB Cooper was a misprint by media, and they ran with it because he was Dan Cooper.
Is that an actual true story? You told me that. Is that okay? And Kristen brings up boys with one earring. I thought was a fad, yet it succeeded and grown to two at a time or more for men. What do you women think of men with earrings? I'm actually curious about that. Producer girlfriend?
I don't think you should get one. Love you.
I thought tattoos.
There are two good circumstances though for men with earrings: pirate, biker.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if those are your career paths, it's almost mandatory.
But they fall into
Mick
the
Jagger.
tattoo thing. I mean, we're of a generation now. Your kids' generation and a little older, Chris, are the tattoo generation. I mean, these kids everybody's thank God the tramp stamp was a fad. I hope it was.
But at least the tramps are still with us.
That's exactly right. What about you? What about you, producer girlfriend? What do you think was popular, became a fad, or fad became popular?
I said most of the things from the 80s, like the Lisa Frank and all that. I will say one thing, and then I'm gonna let iPhone has his hand up. I think he wants to speak, but I think it's really interesting recently how, the fax machine is essentially gone, except for if you have to get a hold of the FDA, they require you to give a phone number so they can fax you. So the FDA, I think, is in cahoots with the fax machine companies trying to keep.
They're in cahoots with big fax.
Yeah.
But once faxing was available or incorporated into computers, that's what did away with the physical machines.
Right.
By the way, if iPhone wants to ask a question or say something, just type it in. But here's my.
I'm new to this. I don't know how to do it.
Well, you could just speak now, since we all hear you.
So you do. I told you I'd mess this up.
Yeah.
I was trying to answer the earring question. I like the earrings.
So iPhone woman, iPhone girl, iPhone lady.
And then when you're talking about the airplanes, what's your favorite hostage airplane movie of the 80s?
Oh, that's
Rick, come on. Yeah, first of all, it's like asking.
Raid on Entebbe.
No, that's 70s.
Thank you. And the one non-Jew has to bring it up. Is that iPhone woman, girl? You're like asking Judah, what's your favorite
iPhone Kim?
What's your favorite
iPhone Kim?
What's
I don't
your
even have
favorite
that
adult
yet.
diaper?
And what's the answer, Lewis?
What was that?
Senecott and Depends.
No, what's the answer to her question?
Right on Antibes.
No, it's the Delta Force.
No.
That was
No.
Rita Van Tebbe was the 70s. All of them were the 70s. She asked about the 80s. And yes, the Delta Force with Chuck Norris, Lee Marvin, and Joey Bishop, George Kennedy. Yeah.
Joey Bishop was in that?
Yes, he
Forgot
was.
that.
Martin Balsam, a young Kim Delaney.
Lady Kazan.
Lainey Kazan.
Kim Delaney is in Delta Force?
She plays a nun.
With George Kennedy.
She plays one of George Kennedy's nuns.
Well, I would be happy.
And Robert Forster playing the Arab hijacker.
Yeah.
You know, Robert.
I would have loved to have been his agent at the time. Listen, Bob, I got a part for you. Listen to this cast. Lee Marvin. Yeah, no, it gets better. Chuck, so you're going to play a swarthy, violent, jihadist Arab. Most of which I just said is redundant, but that's the role. And who's fine? Israel. They say it'll pay. They say they'll pay. They say they'll pay. And I get
So iPhone Kim likes the earrings. I got to be honest. I'm not an earring person. But what fads did you think were going to end, or what things did you think that were popular that aren't anymore?
2 words. Fizz whiz.
Double dip.
Big Chew.
Dip and
Bubble gum. Big Chew bubble gum.
Dairy Queen.
Still get it. And I would take the whole thing and put it in my mouth. And between the sugar high and the spontaneous erection, it was just amazing.
Oh, by the way, if you missed the beginning of the show, Lewis divulged to us something very personal, which he's never done on the show, where he divulged that he didn't accidentally call 900 numbers. He did it purposely.
Yes.
And I
was banned because my mother had opened my MBNA Visa credit card bill and called while I must have been away and protested the charges, had them reversed, but in turn had me banned from that.
You know what the most telling thing is going to be, Lewis? How much was your 900?
I was always aware of what they were charging, and in turn,
no. What was your biggest bill?
It was never huge, but that was also because
we know why.
For purposes of efficiency and economy, I was able to reach the point where the conversation was at an end.
Okay, so here we're gonna get to this one. So last night, a couple of you saw a picture that I had sent to you. Producer girlfriend could put up that picture for a second. That is Chris. Can you see the picture? That is as we were traveling to the desert last night. Me and
I can't see it.
It's hard to see, but it's 2 of us with face masks in a gas station.
I asked if you were the one on the left.
Yes.
And no one else there.
It's Ben Stein and myself on the way down to Rancho Mirage wearing face masks in a Chevron station. But do
the
you
best
guys
part,
think,
I have a story for you, Judah.
Yeah.
Because Ben Stein is holding a cane, and you told me to save the story for the show, so here it is. My brother was driving my mother back to her house in northern New Jersey. My brother at the time was living with a roommate in Hoboken, and they were on, I believe, either Route 4 or Route 17, and he saw the consumer electronics store PC Richard. And he said, because he was in the market for a specific model Sony television, I'm going to pull in because if they have it in stock and it's the right price, I'm going to buy it now. So the salesman who approached my brother was a man who was in his 50s, and either because of a disability, permanent or temporary, or the result of surgery or an injury, had a cane. And he and my brother were dickering, and my mother just walked up, interrupted, and said, I won't actually do her voice, but she said to the salesman, I have to be somewhere. If you don't hurry up, I'll take that cane and beat you with it.
That's a wonderful story, Lewis. Thank you for that other very revealing factoid about your upbringing.
The upbringing.
Chris, do you think face masks are the thing? Do you think we are going to be like Korea, or do you think most Americans are just going to say the hell with it?
to hell with it.
I do too. I think most Americans are going to just say we're done.
Right.
Louis?
And not have
There
empathy.
reaches a point where people are just gonna turn the page. I mean, in Arizona, which is where I live, our stuff has been open for close to 3 weeks now. So like restaurants, gyms, we're on a path to normalcy here. The only places I really see face masks are where they're required. So we went out to eat last night. The staff was wearing them because they're required to, but nobody else was. I go to the gym. There's nobody wearing them. It isn't happening except maybe in like discrete circumstances where they seem where they're either required or maybe if we're working in a meat packing plant or something.
What were you going to say, Louis? Before your,
I think because they're mandatory here, I don't have a problem with them. I think they're going to be more commonplace.
I think social distancing, I think staying 6 feet away from people, which I have no problem with, should remain.
You're like, why do I have to get closer than I was before?
That's exactly right. I'm all for the social distancing, but no, I mean, I wonder.
I have a special guest star here.
Oh my God! There's the beautiful Olivia.
Hi.
You don't know? Yes, I've seen tons of your images on Facebook. That will be ready for your beautiful girl, Louis. I don't know how you did it. Olivia, what type of lunchbox do you use?
I use sometimes LOL lunchboxes.
LOL lunchboxes.
I don't know.
Thanks for saying hi.
I like
It's funny. I put the TV on mute so I wouldn't hear the news, and now it.
So there you get that channel where they're still playing Wapner and Rusty the Bailiff.
But yes, iPhone Kim. What are some of the things?
Newsom was just on. Newsom was just on, and he was really good. He was very emotional.
We don't talk news though here. So was it a good story? Did he say how much he loved all Californians?
Yes, and that we have to have empathy for each other and collaboration, change the culture, teach our children.
This is the governor of California who literally stole his look from American Psycho. He literally watched the movie American Psycho and said, I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, that. He's like, I love Christian Bale.
Yeah, I love Christian Bale, and I'm just gonna go with it. But I mean, it's so bizarre though that we live in these times where, I mean, who would have thought when we were younger the accessibility that we have today? And it's sort of a bizarre thing that producer girlfriend was saying, how things do come back. Is there anything that's gone that you think could come back?
Here's one. It's not going to come back. When it was socially acceptable and in many respects commendable to commit gross acts of child abuse in either a Kmart or a toy store. And that was a sign of good parenting, where you'd see a mother or a father just beating the crap out of their kid.
You're bringing back really bad memories for me. Thank you. I asked you not to.
I agree.
I'm talking about
we're not allowed to be parents.
Yeah, I'm talking about choking a kid out, punching him repeatedly in the eye, and somebody who, passerby would say, that's a good parent. It's a good father.
You're completely right, by the way. That's a trend that has definitely is there. When we were younger,
you could beat the crap out of your kid.
Yeah.
Oh my God. When younger, my father would punch us if we did something wrong. Today, if you do a spanking, you're arrested.
And people would talk about in the neighborhood. People would talk about so and so is a very good father, and if were you to ask why, the answer would be he threw his kid down a flight of stairs and then kicked him in the liver.
Chris,
did you live in an Irish neighborhood?
No, it was just that was the way things were.
It does sound very Irish. It could be.
iPhone Kim, did you live in an Irish neighborhood?
I lived in an Irish, Polish, Italian neighborhood, so that all was going on.
Right.
That is such an imagery in my head of is it okay to call them guinea teas? or the wife beater shirts.
Oh yeah, that's all we had.
Do you think
Everybody-
those are ever going to come back into style?
I doubt
Those
it.
are
But
Judah, those are in style now.
Tracksuits. Remember tracksuits when everybody had
yeah, but
tracksuits?
here was
Matching
the thing.
matching colors.
Yeah.
The beauty of the tracksuit is that to wear it well, you had to be at least 300 pounds. You had to have under the jacket nothing
Yeah.
but a carpet of chest hair, and either
And some kind of chain, right?
a gold high or a gold horn, and you'd wear it on a Sunday at a bagel store where you were going to get a dozen bagels, and then you'd go next door to the bakery to get a cake or some
Where did
Cinnamon
you
buns.
grow up?
What?
Where did you grow up? Like, this is Chris's point. Where?
In New Jersey.
So this was actually happening.
I get that
My
too.
father had a
And cinnamon
velour,
buns were in there too.
okay, can I say that word again? Velour knockoff, because I don't remember Sassoon making men's tracksuits. A velour Sassoon knockoff of a tracksuit.
But I'm wondering
But
where
he
is an
wore it
interesting.
to a restaurant for dinner.
So I want to raise an interesting question. So often celebrity could bring something in to style, but if said celebrity messes up, no longer. So for instance, Charlie Sheen, right, on 2.5 Men, everybody was everybody above the age of 50 that of a certain demographic was wearing those bowling shirts.
Like Ben Boychuk 2 shows ago.
Yeah, like Ben Boychuk 2 shows ago. That's exactly right.
When did this phenomenon start? The rich or upper middle class, distinguished gentleman, man of a certain age, beautiful sweater, just draped over the shoulders, sleeves just lightly crossed in front.
Or penny loafers.
Those
Never
should come
go.
back.
The, the loafer will never
We
go.
should bring the loafers back. That could come back. When you asked the question, like what
they've
could come
never
back?
gone
Penny
out of
loafers.
style.
I like that. Yes. So let's think. What could come back? So we could have the penny loafer.
I like
We
the
could bring
penny
that
loafer.
back.
Uncircumcised penises, making a huge resurgence. The parents that are just no, I don't want to circumcise my child. It's mutilation. Okay.
What about people that don't want to vaccinate? That's
That's a
Polio?
problem.
Who gets polio?
right. We're bringing back measles.
Yeah.
Whoever thought measles, mumps, and rubella would come back into fashion?
I don't have to vaccinate.
Chicken pox parties.
Chickenpox parties. Yeah, it was brilliant. And now
Here's a
adults.
word you won't see. If this word comes back, then we've made a sea change, and I will march arm in arm with the colors of the rainbow. Maid, not housekeeper. This is my maid.
That's a
That's
tough one.
You
That's
call
a good-
somebody your maid, even if you're paying them,
Or a servant.
will go ape shit.
Our servant, right? Like, you
My
know.
maid.
Yeah. No, but you're right. It's so
I don't
funny
speak to her. I have the butler do it.
You can still have butlers, but you can't have maids.
It's so funny that you say that, though, because a certain friend of mine does have a few
Maids.
cleaning assistants, and I'm always scared. I've sometimes I'll say maid.
Professional cleaning managerial
Well, it's
level.
like custodial engineer. You can't call a janitor anymore. They're custodial engineers. My
No.
nephew, my
Yeah,
18
I hear janitor all the time. I have never heard anyone say custodial engineer.
Okay, just so you know, and just so you know, my nephew who's 21 or 22, he's looking for work, and my mother said, "Would he be willing to do gopher work?" And he had no idea what that meant.
Hmm.
He had zero
Well,
idea.
And
And I don't mean gopher from the Love Boat.
No, I get it. Fred Grandy.
Oh, the bursar? The ship's bursar?
What
Yeah.
are you like? Are you that one anomaly in the endnotes to the bell curve among Ashkenazi Jews who are not smart? What you got a cousin who's going to be a janitor?
Custodial engineer.
Go
No,
for
but
it.
what happened to those Jewish Jews?
He was asking about if on like he was willing to do gopher work at a theater, not at.
Because everyone's going to those places. Let me put on a monkey suit and be an usher.
He's a little behind the curve. Chris, name me something you want brought back.
Movie theaters, because I'm going to double predict. Movie theaters have been in slow decline. They're probably, they're not going to do well. A bunch of them are going to close, but I want them to come back already.
You know what I want? TV repair businesses. You could bring in your Zenith after it had almost set fire to your bedroom, and there was a whole business where people made a living repairing televisions.
No, you raise a great point though, because the point you're bringing up is not just TV repair. Remember when there was photo shops?
I remember.
Remember when there was literally stores that were solely built on selling Xerox machines and having pictures made.
I would like pictures. I was
one
just
better
thinking
for you.
that. The old pictures that we used to put in the frames.
In Westwood, New Jersey,
Good one.
town over from where I grew up, they had a vacuum repair store, and you walked in and you saw vacuums. The greatest thing I ever saw in this store. Now, this was a model that was undergoing repair, so it shows you how reliable it was. But it was as if it was from the future. It was the vacuum that had a light on it.
Oh yeah.
Like night, it was, instead of Night Rider, it was Night Vacuum. And it was, to me, when that light came on, it was like I was at a World's Fair exhibit about the year 2050.
Producer girlfriend, what would you like brought back?
Employment.
Remember when people had that? That was great.
I was going to be more specific, but I think it would have given away a little bit too much of who I am. So I'm going to go with blanket, like employment. But you know what? It's something I think that I've learned during this COVID situation that I would like to come back is like people being respectful and not like calling, like leaving certain times of the day for like family time. Like there's something I like about not being so accessible all the time.
Not calling at 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. when you're
Yeah, that died. Okay, so that died about.
That's a great point.
But like I've like gotten to the point where I love that at 7:30 I turn off my phone and my time is with Judah and our dogs. And I think that's something that as I go back to work, I'm going to try and keep more of.
You raise a great point though. When did people have to be awake pretty much 24/7?
I think in the 90s. I think it was somewhere in the 90s. It was after the 80s when everybody was partying, and then after everybody's partying, nobody was calling each other. 90s, everybody started doing that.
Email and the smartphone, namely text messaging, rendered all manners and any measure of civility moot, because if I can send a message, that means you can reply. Time is irrelevant. And the longer it takes for you to reply to my message, the more messages I will send. Never mind, it's 4 a.m. and one should do, because, well, 5 more will have no greater effect if you're sleeping. So why not leave one and say, call me as soon as you get this. This is urgent. And the disregard for limits, family time. And I also want to speak to the phrase
personal space.
Right. Judah and our dogs, which sounds as exciting as a night in any South Florida retirement community.
Listen, we have dinner, we feed the dogs, we go for a walk, we watch some Shark Tank. You know what I mean?
And we watch Shark Tank. You're right, Louis. Louis, you're right.
There is no doubt in my mind that
I am planning on my Boca journey. You're right. Boca is in my sight.
I've already cut down his salt, okay? Which he keeps bringing up on the show.
What I'm saying is he's journaling in a way only serial killers can, his bowel movements.
Let's not go there. Chris, what do you want brought back?
I still want the movie theaters to come back. We got to do that.
I don't see it.
I do
don't,
too. I want them to come back.
I have no interest.
What about
I had
you?
a movie
Kim?
theater
What
again,
would
going
you
back
like
to
see
Western
brought
New
back?
Jersey. Single screen, and there were no commercials before the trailers. You know what they had? An organist. And then they broke the theater up into multi-screens, and there was no more organist. But think about it. You would sit there for like a half hour if you got there early, and that was it. There was no like, hey, they're going
Can I tell you,
to
iPhone Kim, you missed the funniest part in the beginning of the show because Lewis has been really actually very open this show. I've learned more about Lewis on this.
Apparently, I just learned a lot.
in the few years that I've known him. Is that Lewis used to belong to a party line.
No, I didn't belong.
No,
to a
and I
party
caught
line.
on.
And,
Judith,
oh, and-
I caught on quickly. So the party
and-
line, the 900 number where
right, and Chris thought he meant.
I wasn't having. Let me correct you. I wasn't having group phone sex. I was having intimate conversations.
I did catch on. So
Not really into
say
other
that
men
one more time. I'm sorry.
joining
Say
my
that one more
phone
time.
sex. Hold on, let me bring Jerry into this. Oh man, you were so hot.
Oh my God.
Are we doing Dallas Buyers Club? What are we doing here?
But Chris thought he was referring to the World War II party line.
Right.
Where everybody gave up. Everybody gave up.
So you didn't know what the 900
History of
was? We
that
all knew
job.
that back then.
Can I tell you something? I would love that. I got to say, for one day,
900.
we
That would be
called up
funny.
a service and said, "Can you connect me to,
I think it would
Cheryl
have been.
or Cherry.
You have to be. No, the reason I think it would be miserable is that you'd have to be on the whole time. You couldn't slack off. You had these headphones on, and never mind that you were eavesdropping on conversations. And then you would take another plug and say to the police that this Mr. Smith is having an affair when adultery was still an arrestable offense. It's still on the books, but people aren't arrested for committing adultery, except in the armed services. But you had to pay attention. Do you know how much Ritalin you would need to do that job now?
Oh
To
my
pay
God.
attention and physically.
When you used to put the glass up to the wall and try to listen to people, that was the other thing. The 900. Or you put the glass and tried to listen to the wall, through the wall.
Chris, isn't this the most telling show we've ever had of finding out
Way too
people's-
much.
Yeah.
Or that you could unlock and break and enter into a home simply by using a credit card.
Yeah, that went away.
And you know what I would love to come back? Nice TV shows. You know what? Just wholesome TV shows. And I know I sound like an old person by
No,
saying
it's very.
that,
But you're trying to clean this up.
but no. I grew up in a time in the '80s where a family could watch a show together,
Like the Cosby Show. And I think
I
that
never watched
that
the
had a
show.
redeeming message.
There's
or the
Cosby
Wonder Years, Growing Pains, Family Ties. And on that note, producer girlfriend, anything else did we leave out? Because Chris looks like he's on pins and needles right now in his in Don Lapre's home.
Thanks for watching today.
I'm in Tom Boo's home.
As Ben would say, you could catch us on the Twitters at 4Esoterics. We record every Tuesday and Friday at 12 o'clock. Feel free to reach out to
Pacific
us for a code.
And that's at 4Esoterics. I am terrible at doing that. At the 4Esoterics. Chris, where can people find you?
On Twitter at the Chris Buskirk.
And various homes in the greater Phoenix area.
And Lewis,
Lock your doors.
Lewis Blackwell Fine, I want to thank you for introducing your beautiful daughter to the world. Kristen, iPhone girl, thank you so much for listening. We'll back. I hope we gave everybody a reprieve from the news. It's okay to shut off the TV sometimes, but never shut off amgreatness.com. Go to it, read it, learn from it, listen to the podcasts. And with that, I want to wish everybody a great weekend. Thank you.